music really badly for everything else.
We have to take one or the other.
Good morning, everyone. So many welcomes to the Center for Spiritual Living in the heart of Las Cruces. I'm so glad that you're all here. It's wonderful to be together. I'm Sarah Benson, and this is Doug and Kay, and we're going to start you off with a couple of songs. I invite you to stand if that's comfortable for you.
Hello, it's great to see you. Hey friend, you're not alone. Come in, our hearts are open. Welcome home. Come on, the Spirit's moving. Our love is here to grow. Wake up, our coffee's brewing. Welcome home. This is my place. This is your place. This is our place. Welcome home. Hello. This is my place. It's great to see you. Hey friend. This is your place. You're not alone. Come in. This is our place. Our hearts are open. Welcome home. Come on. This is our place. The Spirit's moving. Our love. This is your place. Is here to grow. Wake up. This is our place. Our coffee's brewing. Welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Good morning. What do you think? What do you think of the new look?
I like it.
Yeah, you can see more of Edie than the back of her head. 14 years we've been looking at the back of her head.
It's okay, she's got a great laugh.
Yeah, she does. Well, welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living in the heart of Las Cruces. I'm Judy Hunt, your practitioner today. Everybody hearing okay? Yep. In the back rows there? Yeah. Carrie, could you get Taylor a listening device? Thank you. Great. That works the trick, and the mic is right here, so that should work. Our vision here at the Center for Spiritual Living is a world in loving partnership for the good of all. Welcome to anyone visiting for the first time. There's a lovely packet of information about us, including a gift certificate for the bookstore. So it's quite a good value. And also in there, you can fill out a form to join our newsletter, and then you'll know everything that's going on in this very busy place. And welcome to those watching online who are seeing me in lovely profile. Today, after the service in honor of Reverend Bonnie Allen Rice's 84th birthday, the same birthday that Edie just had, but Reverend Bonnie isn't here to celebrate with us, we will be scattering some of her ashes in the garden outside the sanctuary windows, knowing a part of her is always with us. And you are welcome to join as we do this. Next Saturday is the Metaphysical Fair. If you have something you'd like to do, there's still time to get a booth and register. Also, everyone is welcome to come and bring friends to see what all is being offered and glean from their services. So that'll be fun. And next Sunday is the September board meeting after the service. And then September 21st at 2, we will have the celebration of Reverend Pat Conway's life here at the center. So be sure and mark your calendar. I know that a lot of you have been touched by her and will be here for that. It's going to be wonderful. And there will be a reception to follow in the social hall. And if you'd like to bring finger food, it would be very welcome. So we'll just make it really casual and relaxed, just like Pat would have liked it. October 26th is the fall treasure sale, so hey, it's cool enough in the morning, you can get in your garage and closets and start finding stuff. It's been too hot in there so far, but now you can. And November 16th, our craft fair, and see Deborah Taylor Russell, she's coordinating that for us, so if you want to let her know what you're making or cooking, so that's going to be fun. So here at the Center for Spiritual Living, we believe in the power of prayer, and we call it affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment. Doesn't matter what you call it. It's a connection with spirit, and it is how we live and how we move through life. So we have a wonderful group that meets on Tuesdays that prays with you, and there are requests for prayer on the back of the seats, and there's also gratitude cards. So when Spirit is moving in your life, let us know. It's wonderful to get those responses. And it's a wonderful opportunity to have prayer with you and move stuff out of your way, so you can just proceed in harmony with Spirit. And today, if there's anything on your heart, Bob and I are available after service. And Bailey's are here. Yeah, how could I forget? So we have many people. I hope there are many people asking for prayer. We are bountiful. So please use us. It's always good for us. So thank you. Now it is time for song, silence, and prayer.
In the silence there is peace. In the silence there is unspoken joy. In the silence there's release from a world filled with chaos and noise. And I awake in these precious moments when I hear all that could never be said, and right here in this holy silence I find God, I find myself. In the the silence there is peace. In the silence there is unspoken joy. In the silence there's release from a world filled with chaos and noise. And I awake to these precious moments when I hear all that could never be said. And right here in this holy silence I find God. I find God. I find myself.
Spirit in the midst of us is mighty today. Feel Spirit coursing in and through and around. And feel the peace and energy and joy and love that is Spirit. We know Spirit blesses our time together, multiplies our gifts, and we are made richer just by being here in presence. And it is all good, and I'm so grateful, and so it is. Our reading today is from the September magazine of Science of Mind. It's just wonderful. Peace is a friend. We are the builders who are building a world that has never been built before. That's by Cleo Wade. And from Ernest, I now turn to the Spirit within me. I know that it is close to me. It is what I am, and it governs my life in harmony and peace. As we welcome this new month and season of the heart, let's begin with a gentle reminder. Everything we need to navigate the storms of life, we will find within, including peace. This week, I found myself in the middle of one of life's storms. As I rocked on seas of change and uncertainty, I searched for the coordinates of inner peace. I remembered that in the eye of a storm, there is a tranquil oasis, just like there is in us. As I looked for a path to my calm center, I noticed that small moments of beauty and gratitude unveiled my peace. I remembered that in the eye of a storm, I found peace in the soft pink clouds of sunrise. I found it in the joyful song of the cardinal. I found it in a deep breath, in the kindness of a friend, in meditation, in prayer, in caregiving. It was here, hiding in plain sight. Today, as we set sail on a journey into the very heart of peace, it might feel like an unattainable dream. But when we look at peace through the sacred eyes of Spirit, we realize that inner peace is not a dream for the future. It's a practice of many small steps that combine to create a new way of life. It's an adventure of Spirit. Peace is a friend who never leaves, a friend who reminds us that these challenging pieces of our lives are not separate from the peace of divine love. Peace lives right here within us, illuminated by the simple, sacred moments of this day. And our affirmation is, I unveil the peace within me. I have a calm center in the storms of my life. And so it is.
Doug Adams is going to be doing our special music this morning, so give him a warm welcome.
I learned that the talk today was going to be called Pieces of Peace. So I thought about that a lot, and I wrote this song. This is a world premiere. Nobody's ever, well, I've never played this song publicly before. And I titled it with a lot of originality. I titled it Pieces of Peace. Seven long years, seeking, not finding. 7 years cutting the ties that were binding. 7 years wandering through this world full of wonder. Each step that I take or took, a more grievous blunder. Until one morning, it came silently stealing, an all but forgotten deja vu feeling. I couldn't be sure, I only could guess. Is this a piece of lost happiness? Pieces of happiness, pieces of peace, waves of love finally released. So I picked it up from off of the floor, and I gave it a hug and a home in a drawer. Now once in a while, when I walk through my door, without even looking, I'd find a few more. And up on the hillside and down on the streets, so I started to share them with people I'd meet. Everyone that I gave, 10 more would come back, till my pockets were full, and my little backpack with pieces of happiness, pieces of peace, waves of love finally released. Now I look around me, and it brings me to tears. Unspeakable cruelty for years upon years. Feels like this world is getting ready to crack, and all I have to offer is here in my little pack. But I'd like to remind you, each piece is a seed And if you cast it out, it'll grow like a weed. A little dirt and some water, and soon it will tower and bless this old earth with its precious flower. Seeds of happiness, seeds of peace, waves of love finally release. Seeds of happiness and pieces of peace, waves of love finally release.
Thank you. I'm watching on the screen, so my back is to you, but I can see you. Thank you so much. Perfect. Well, that is the month's topic for this month is Pieces to Peace, into Peace. I'm Reverend Bonnie, the community spiritual leader here at the center. I recognize every face, so I think most of you already knew that. And this is the unstatus quo setup of the chairs. Thanks to Lisa Giuliano. Thank you for coming up with this idea. I decided climbing steps for the first time in front of y'all wasn't a good idea. So I like being down here where I am still in one piece, so to speak. So as I thought about this month's theme of peace into peace, or pieces into peace, it made me think about that phrase, falling to pieces. And then I thought, well, we also say falling into place, both of which is falling. So when we fall into pieces, the idiom means that we can't hold it together. Something might be breaking up or breaking apart. And it also had as a definition, losing one's capacity to cope. And so sometimes it's not just like life is falling apart or falling to pieces, but I think sometimes we feel like our connection with our source and our good, our God, is also falling to pieces. At times we feel a sense of separation. And I know throughout my life, I've experienced this when my parents divorced, when my son died, and when I've experienced several breakups in my life. So I assume if I've had that much experience, that you all can relate to the feeling of falling apart or falling into pieces. And so as we talked about this sort of thing in our lives, in religious science, we say we want to turn away from the conditions. We consider those experiences the conditions that are showing up in our life, the effects of what's going on in our life. And as Ernest Holmes says, even when that happens, this is not a process of saying peace when there is no peace. So not only do we turn from conditions, but we also don't fool ourselves and pretend like stuff isn't happening. So I love that phrase that he says, it's not saying peace when there is no peace. So how do we do that? What's the balance between turning from conditions, not giving it our focus or our attention, and at the same time, not fooling ourselves in saying peace when there is no peace? Well, this last month, as most of you already know, I got a new knee, and I spent a lot of time sitting with my leg up in the ice machine, running cold water over it, a lot more time sitting than I'm used to, and contemplating, and eventually read through everything I needed to read through. So I started watching Netflix. And one show really caught my attention, and for a variety of reasons. I got some really good lines, some ideas. I think if you're someone like me who's doing talks a lot, everything you do ends up being food for the next talk. So I got some good insights, some good lines, and the show was Call the Midwife. Well, in a later session, so I've watched several of them by this point, one of the main characters who's a midwife ends up finally letting love into her life. And they start to go out together, and then he does something that pisses her off, like it usually happens in these shows. So they have a separation moment, and he, in his upset, is doing something and falls from a high place, and they're not sure he's going to survive. And of course, she has a turn of thought then, goes running to his side, and they profess their love for each other, and it looks like he's going to pull through. So she goes to help someone else give birth, and in the process gets a call that he's died. Yeah. So she feels like life is falling apart. And she's not sure how to handle that because she finally let love in, and then this happened. And the nun says to her this line that really spoke to me. You just keep living until you feel alive again. And I thought that was a beautiful line for those of us who've experienced loss. And it just it brings tears to my eyes. You just keep living until you feel alive again. So the focus is on the living. The focus is where we put our attention during these kinds of circumstances. So when we feel like we're falling apart, when we feel like we're separating from Spirit or God, I think sometimes it's especially true when bad things happen to good people. I had a professor in college who wrote a book called When Bad Things Happen to Good People, and I spent an entire semester studying with him, mostly the book of Job from the Hebrew Scriptures. And we were looking at, why does that happen? How does that happen? And so I think when it happens to us, because we think we're good people, how is it possible that this bad thing has happened? How could a loving God let this happen? And I've had in many classes people say, well, if God is love, how could this have happened, the Holocaust or some other atrocity in human experience? And so one of the things that we teach, and this is Ernest Holmes from this thing called You, is that there is a God power at the center of everyone's being, a presence that knows neither lack, limitation, nor fear, sickness, disquiet, nor imperfection. This presence and power is at the center of all people and all things. But because everyone is an individual, he or she can build a wall of negative thought between himself or herself and this perfection. This makes it difficult for the true center to come to the surface. And so we believe in this center that we have that is Spirit or God, that place, I think it was in the reading and in the song, that part of us that is always at peace, that inner self. And so how do we get to the place where we can access that and feel that again when it feels like life is falling apart? I think sometimes in terms of how we've come to imagine God, we think of a God that's running everything. We think of a God that's in charge, and that's why we say, well, how could he or she let this happen? I call that the puppeteer God. I picture the little marionettes, and God's kind of, oh, this one's going over here and over here. And so why me? Why did I deserve this? Why did God let this happen in my life? Well, those are some of the questions that I've spent a lot of time contemplating over the years as my idea of God and Spirit and how it works in my life has evolved. And so as I contemplate and think about it, I think each one of us has to come up with our own answers as to what it is that we think is happening when bad things happen to good people, especially to us, to ourselves. In New Thought, we also teach God is all there is. We say God is in, through, and around all, including ourselves. Sometimes you've heard it said, there is no place that God is not. I have a hard time with double negatives, so I switched that to God is everywhere present. So if that's true, does that mean God's in charge? Does that make God a puppeteer? I personally don't think so. I've had to come to a different understanding of what that means as it moves in and through my life. So again, an aha from Call the Midwife. As the nun was consoling this midwife who had had this experience, she said to her, God isn't in the events, God is in the response to the events. What a perfect and concise way of putting it. God isn't in the events, God is in the response to the events. Now, in New Thought terminology, events are called conditions. We talk about the conditions that show up in our lives, what conditions have manifested based on what we've put out there into the law. And so God's presence is there in the events only as it is in us and our response to those events. Ernest Holmes said it's done to us as it's done through us. And so in this month's Science Mind magazine, of course, they're focused on this idea of pieces into peace. There's an article called Arriving at Peace. And this person is quoting Pema Chodron as saying, things fall apart is kind of a testing and also a kind of healing. We think that the point is to pass the test or to overcome the problem, but the truth is things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together again and they fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for the grief, for relief, for misery, for joy. Let there be room to coexist with calm and distress, love and detachment, joy and sorrow. And so how we work that, how we let that happen in our life, I think is part of that healing and growing process. Again, it's in the response, how it is we respond to all these conditions and events that show up in our life. Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind text, also says, change the consciousness and the false condition will disappear. Conditions are not entities, we are entities. So we're changing the consciousness, how we think about what's going on. And that false, whatever those things are we don't want to experience, false conditions, will disappear because they aren't as real. Or I think it was Joel Goldsmith that says, let them return to the nothingness from which they came. So we allow ourselves to be that presence of spirit in whatever the condition or the event that shows up. And sometimes life's conditions and events hit pretty hard, especially when we lose a loved one. Catherine just lost her mother, and we lost our good friend Pat Conway, and we'll be celebrating her life soon. I lost my son, and other people in this congregation have lost their children as well. And many of us have lost our beloved pet children, and that just tears us apart too. So we know what loss feels like. We know what grief feels like. And so when that happens, it does feel like we're falling apart. It feels like life is just black, and we do the next best thing. We keep on living till we can feel alive again. Reverend Terry was the unity minister here when I first moved to town, and she was my prayer partner for many years until she passed. And she used to say, things are shaking up in order to shake out. So as we seek to move from falling apart and being shook up to falling into place and seeing how this situation is going to shake out, how do we make that move in consciousness? How do we make that shift? So I'm going to let you give me a few words of wisdom here. What do you do? How do you make the shift from feeling like it's fallen apart to moving into letting it fall into place? What works for you? Trust? Okay. Affirmations? Getting up and meditating. What was that? Curiosity, sitting with it. What was that? Art? What did you say, Teresa? Faith and love. Yeah. Great. So you all have found ways, I think all of you have found ways to figure out how to move our consciousness, move our thoughts, and shift them. Jesse Jennings, I've always said he's my favorite when it comes to the writers in this book. He says, I come back to a short list of what can be controlled in the here and now. We know we can't control other people's choices. We've been trying that since childhood. We can offer persuasive arguments if anybody's listening, but it's the self we control, one thought at a time. And so I think that says it in terms of how we move is from one thought at a time. And we do that in our thoughts either through affirmations or what we also call affirmative prayer or treatment. And that's been talked about a couple times this morning. And I think part of it is being able to look at things. Ernest Holmes gives us an example, of course, from the Science of Mind text. And he says, let us learn to see as God must, with a perfect vision. Let us seek the good and the true and believe in them with our whole heart, even though everyone we meet is filled with suffering and limitation appears at all sides. We cannot afford to believe in imperfection for a single second. To do so is to doubt God. It is to believe in a power apart from God, to believe in another creator. Let us daily say to ourselves, perfect God within me, perfect life within me, which is God, come forth into expression through me as that which I am. Lead me ever into the paths of perfection and cause me to see only the good. By this practice, the soul will become illumined and will acquaint itself with God and be at peace. And he talks a lot about treatment and affirmative prayer. So further on page 202, that was 185, he says, after the treatment is done, finish your treatment with a realization of peace, remaining for a few moments in silent recognition that your work is done, complete, and perfect. So your song about in the silence was perfect. You just spend some time and allow it to sink in. Allow yourself to take it in and allow that shift to take place in your consciousness. Now, as we do affirmative prayer, and as I've taught it over the years, people will often ask, how often do I treat then for the same thing? Because it didn't show up like this, like I wanted it to. How many times do I do a treatment? How many times do I do it when we say we're going to release it, since the last step is to release? Can we treat for that same thing again? So these are some of the questions that are thrown out there. And again, in the text, Ernest Holmes says this: know this until there comes to your consciousness a deep, calm sense of peace and ease, and until every thought of pain is eliminated. When he says know this, that's the process. You're knowing that in your treatment. You're knowing that in your affirmative prayers and in your affirmations. You continue to know that, to remind yourself until you reach that sense of deep peace and that feeling of peace. I think, again, Joel Goldsmith talked about feeling a click. It's like as you're doing the treatment, as you're doing the prayer work, you'll feel when that shift happens. You'll feel when you can really let it go. So as we can look at our concerns and we're focused on then what it is we want to experience, we pray without ceasing, whether that's just in our mind, in the back of our mind, not always just sitting there writing them out or saying them, but we're constantly moving our thoughts and describing what it is we want, visualizing what we want, letting ourselves feel how it is we want to feel. And eventually you'll feel that shift of full release when you feel that sense of inner peace. I liked what Brian said last week. He said, don't make yourself wrong as you're moving along this journey. So I'm thinking as we're falling apart and then moving into falling into place, that's a journey, that's a process that we're doing in our mind and in our consciousness. And there's no place along that journey where you're wrong. He said, if I'm driving from here to Albuquerque, I'm not wrong when I'm in TRC or wrong when I'm in Socorro. I thought that was a perfect analogy. So as you're falling through whatever experience, you're not wrong as you experience all that you feel along the way as your consciousness is shifting. Brian also talked about being the noticer. And so I pictured myself as I'm falling, noticing I'm falling. Wow, I'm falling apart. And this is what that feels like. You know, this is what that experience is like, sort of stepping back. Kay, you mentioned you've had this experience, stepping back and going, wow. And she said she even got to where, oh, there's me noticing me falling apart. You know, you can keep moving yourself more of a noticer. Okay, this is what's going on. And as I thought about falling apart and falling into place, falling has a sense of freedom to it, that free fall feeling of just sort of floating. And I noticed then when I decide I want a different outcome. And as I decide I want a different outcome, I feel myself shift in consciousness, and my body rights itself from a face plant to my feet, where I can land on my feet and fall into place. So that's the visual that I had. I'm very visual as I pictured this falling into place. And what I know about myself is, as I'm going through this experience in my life, whatever the situation is, I tend to know that I'm starting to fall into place when I get bored with the story. When I'm tired of telling people what's happened, how someone's done me wrong, or how I'm falling, whatever the experience is, I know once I'm bored with the story, I'm ready to fall into place. That something has shifted in my consciousness, and my story starts to change. So as we've mentioned, there are many, many ways to fall into place or fall into peace. Put those pieces in the backpack, as you said. There's treatment and prayer, meditation, contemplation, reading, and journaling. So in that same article, Arriving at Peace, they mentioned several different things, and I liked this description of what this person, the author, does. My approach begins with stepping out into a place where trees live in abundance. Even a city park works. I gaze up at the towering trees, their branches stretching toward the sky. I admire their blooms, their leaves, their distinctive barks, and the life pulsing within them. In awe of their size and intricate patterns, I instantly experience a shift in my mood and aura. Their energies seep into me. They whisper healing mantras and help expand my consciousness. There's something that each of us connects with, as I do with the trees, that helps in detaching from a destructive, chaotic state of mind. That detachment helps us find a solution that is often hidden by the anxiety of what if, what if, what if? For me, it's the trees. For you, it could be the ocean, the desert, your garden, an art form. It could come from activities like landscaping, writing, reading, or cooking. In whatever way works for you, allow your mind to open and focus on whatever helps you become calm. And further on, he says, all these diverse ways to find peace allow us to swim to our inner core, that part of us where peace and wisdom reside. Over time and with practice, you will excel with the skills of a deep sea diver. So I liked his words. So back to the midwives. When they go out on a call, they have a bag that they take with them. And when they get home from delivering a child or helping somebody in whatever the situation is, they take each thing out of that bag, they clean it, they sterilize it, they put it away, and before they go out on another run, they fill that bag back up with all their tools. And so I thought about what's in the toolkit, what's in our spiritual toolkit. And how often do you take it out and look at it? Whatever's in your spiritual toolkit. How often do you clean it up or use it even and practice and make sure you're familiar with how it works? And so I think on a daily basis, we want to open that tool bag, make sure everything in there is cleaned up, we know how to use it, and we have it in place. And we're ready to make use of it if and when we ever need it. And of course, for me, I like checklists. So you might have a list of everything that needs to go into the kit. And number one is call a midwife. So what helps you to midwife your feelings of falling apart into that place of falling into place? You could call a practitioner, prayer partner, a friend. What is the top person? Who can you call to help you through that experience? Now, I know some of us want to do it all ourselves. So what else is on your list? How do you try and birth peace into your life for yourself? Ernest Holmes reminds us of this. No one can demonstrate peace and cling to unhappiness. We can demonstrate resignation and call it peace, but it is not peace. Think about that. So what really helps you move into peace? And what's on your list, what's in your tool bag, and who can you call to help you through that process if you're having trouble or you're sitting in resignation instead of actually in peace? So again, I say, what tools are in your toolbox and how often do you take them out? Are you sure they're in good condition? How often you update them? How often you practice using them? And when I do these talks, I often think about the person who's going to argue with me about what I'm saying. Isn't that interesting? So the other point of view, I'm not looking at you. I do get messages from Kelly sometimes. You said this. What do you mean? That's good. I like it. I like the challenge and to think even deeper. So what I thought was somebody might be going, well, why do I want a cool toolkit? Why do I want to practice preparing for expecting and possibly even creating the worst? Why am I doing that? Well, I went back to the midwives and I thought about what they're preparing for, which is a birth. And as I watched these shows, I hate to tell you how many different shows I've watched, but I watched the midwives when they began. And when the woman is screaming in pain and grunting and pushing and panting, some of them were just appalled at watching that process and felt repulsed by it. And then eventually, as they saw the end result, which was the birth of this child, they started to become more confident in midwifing the babies into the world. And they were able to stay calm and coach the mother through the process and say, okay, now breathe, okay, hold on, now pant, now push. And they stayed calm throughout the process because they were confident in the process and in the tools that they were using. And so I think as we use our tools on a daily basis, our point is to maintain peace in our life every day, not just for when it gets bad and we want to experience peace and we're not feeling it, but to every day bring that peace into our lives. We use those tools on a daily basis. We clean them up. We make sure they're ready for use. We're comfortable with them. We're practicing peace. And then Ernest Holmes again. Now, further on in the Science of Mind text on page 300 says, in this way, we shall gradually go from good to more good and from peace to greater peace. So it's not just from bad to good, from good to more good, from peace to greater peace. And so when we have our toolkit ready, when it's well used and when we're prepared, whenever aspects of life that we can't control get thrown at us, when we feel shook up, when we're falling apart, our practiced and now natural response is to shift into falling into place, to know that we know, and to allow ourselves to fall into peace. And so it is. Yeah, so now please, practitioners and anyone else who wants to add their support and energy, and the rest of you just take it all in, surround this room, and let's have a prayer. Oh, it's so good to see so many of us here. So we just know in our consciousness, in our heart of hearts, that in our core is that place of peace, that we are one with Spirit, and it is present in every event and condition through us and through our response to all those events. So we affirm that we bring peace, we bring love, we bring compassion, we bring harmony. We are confident in the tools that we use, and we bring them into any and every situation. We bring more good to the good, and we bring peace to that which is shaking us up. I'm so grateful, once again, for being back in these rooms with these people, this beautiful community, for all the support that I've had throughout this last month, and to be back here able to share with each other the peace that we bring into each other's hearts and lives, for the support that we bring, and for how we each midwife each other through those times that are challenging. I'm grateful for an amazing community, and I know that we take all of this out into the world, and we're seeing good and more good, and peace and greater peace in our world at large. And so it is. Thank you, practitioners, and those of you who stood.
Peace like a river. Peace like a river. Peace like a river in my soul. Peace like a river. Peace like a river. Peace like a river in my soul. Joy like a fountain. Joy like a fountain. Joy like a fountain in my soul. Joy like a fountain. Joy like a fountain. Joy like a fountain in my soul. Love like a mountain. Love like a mountain. Love like a mountain in my soul. Love like a mountain. Love like a mountain. Love like a mountain in my soul. So now, peace, everybody. A peace like a river. Peace like a river in my soul. Peace like a river. Peace like a river. Peace like a river in my soul.
Ooh, that was fun.
Yeah, that took me back to Youth Sunday when I was a kid at church and back to camp. Thank you. It was hard not to interpret. I used to interpret that at camp. So thank you very much. That was perfect. Well, now is the time that we think about, consider giving back to this center. And I wanted to just share with you something that happened this week. We had a person in our congregation who chose to remain anonymous who had a birthday. And instead of gathering more things, asked for their friends to give a donation to the center. So it totaled $450 that came in because of this person's birthday. Isn't that wonderful? So you might consider doing the same if you don't want more things and your birthday comes around. So I'm grateful that that person had this idea. And so this month, we're shifting to a new tithe recipient. It is the Las Cruces Public Schools Foundation. And this is a private nonprofit corporation that exists for the sole purpose of attracting and managing private gifts and project funds to enhance and enrich the educational experiences of the students of the Las Cruces Public Schools. There's a lot more you can read on our website. That explains what they're about, but I'm grateful that 10% of everything that we give this month in September, and I do believe we have 5 Sundays this month, is going to go to support Las Cruces Public Schools Foundation. So yes, we can pass that and just remember to bless it with your energy and or your gift. Thank you. So let's say our blessing together. Ready? Here we go. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, in me. And we can sing, I am so blessed.
I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed.
We are blessed by beautiful volunteers. Edie had another birthday yesterday. We're so blessed to have her in our midst. She's part of the abundance that we experience here. Thank you so much, everyone, for all that comes in and through the center. We know we are blessed, whether it's through monetary support, energy, love, all that we give each other as we uphold each other and continue to support each other on this journey. I am so grateful, and so it is. Thank you. And please remember, after the service, we have a portion of Bonnie Allen Rice's ashes here. We will be scattering them in our garden and remembering her, because today would have been her birthday as well. So you can stand as you are able, and we will sing our closing song. Sarah, what are we singing?
Let there be peace on earth.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our center, family harmony. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my song of God. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And don't forget, you've got some practitioner midwives in the room if you'd like some help in prayer. Have a great week.
Thank you. That was so much fun. I love your piece.